Welcome to the Lead Well podcast. Around here, we believe leadership shouldn't cost you your peace, your well-being, or the parts of yourself that you have worked so hard to reclaim. I'm your host, Trasetta Washington, leadership wellness coach and strategist. And my mission is to give you practical, actionable steps to reduce overwhelm, lead more effectively, and build a sustainable rhythm for both your team and your life. Let's dive into today's conversation. Hey leaders, welcome back to the Lead Well podcast. Today we're talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is burnout. One of the biggest myths about burnout is that it comes from just out of nowhere. That, one day you're fine, and then the next day you're just completely depleted. But in my work with leaders across nonprofits, higher education, government, just any helping profession, I've seen something very different. Matter of fact, I've experienced something very different. Burnout is rarely random. It's actually very predictable, and more importantly, it's preventable. Most leaders don't ignore the signs. What happens is they reinterpret the signs to mean something different, right? They tell themselves that they're just tired, that it's a busy season, that, I'll slow down later. But in today's episode, I want to walk you through the early indicators that leaders often miss, the physical, emotional, and behavioral signs that show up long before burnout ever starts to take over. And I'm sharing this not to scare you, but so that you can have the language, you can have the awareness and the choice to do things differently. Because burnout proofing your leadership isn't about just simply doing less. It's about leading with enough care and clarity to sustain yourself along the way. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, burnout isn't random. It follows patterns. And today's episode, I really want to bring awareness to you so that you can prevent yourself from getting into a place of burnout in the first place. Right? So let's talk about some of the early physical signs that a lot of leaders tend to ignore. The first one is persistent fatigue that doesn't get fully resolved or isn't fully fixed by resting. That's where you go to bed early, you get, sleep in late on the weekend, give yourself ample time to rest, but you still feel exhausted. That's the kind of fatigue that I'm talking about. Then there's also tension that we hold in our body. It can be in our jaws, it can be in our shoulder, it can be in our chest, it can really be in any muscles in our body. It's so funny because one of my dearest friends mentioned to me to just randomly throughout the day try and catch myself and drop my shoulders. And when she first told me that, I was like, I don't walk around with my shoulders, tensed up. Can't. Which, if I would be honest with myself, I probably really did know that subconsciously, because when I go to get my massage regularly, I'm always like, my neck and my shoulders are super tight. I was holding that in my mind on my way to my brother's house to take care of my father. And it's just a 17-minute drive. And I promise you, like every 2 minutes, I was trying to drop. I caught myself with my shoulders kind of scrunched up and I would have to drop my shoulders. Anyway, I don't even want to belabor that, but we hold a lot of tension in our body and we don't even realize that we do, right? The third physical sign that I want to talk about is these noticing these subtle changes in your sleep, in your digestion, or even within your immune system. I was doing some reflecting. I'm still, I woke up Christmas morning with bronchitis. I'm 2 weeks out now, and I'm still a little not, I'll just say I'm not 100%, right? And I was reflecting on being sick, and I realized that, hey, you were sick last year. I got sick the day after Christmas last year. And then in February, I got COVID. And then I got sick several times throughout the year. Now, I do travel a lot on business, but I do mask up when I'm in the airport and on the plane and whatnot. So I'm very careful to try and prevent myself from getting sick. But I still got sick several times over the year. And that's unusual for me. I usually have a really good immune system. I might get sick maybe once a year. But to be sick multiple times in a year's time, I was like, my immune system is weakened. What do I need to do to build that back up? So, those are some of the physical signs, the most common ones that I see. There's also some emotional warning signs that you need to be on the lookout for. The first is starting to feel really numb, emotionally numb, instead of really engaged and embracing whatever emotions come their way. Now, this next one may not come as a surprise to you, but irritability, especially irritability that feels out of character for you. If that's not the way that you normally show up in the world, and you're snapping at people, or you're jumping down people's throats, or you're raising your voice, you're like, that's not even me. That might be that might be an emotional sign that you're dealing with some burnout. And the third one I want to share is losing your sense of joy or curiosity, where you just, kind of just not even caring. You're not exuberant like you normally are. There's a dimming into your affect, and you're just not your normal self, right? Now let's slip into some of the behavioral warning signs. This first one is similar to the irritability that feels out of character for you. That is becoming more reactive to things rather than being reflective. One of the things about me, I am very, very self aware. I do a lot of reflection. I do a lot of questioning myself. Why did you do that? Why did you handle things that way? Why did you say it this way? Or, and um, when you are dealing with things and you're just always reacting to them, that just kind of gut reaction, and not taking time to be reflective and responsive, especially when that's not your norm, that could be one of the behavioral signs that you are on the verge of burnout or experiencing burnout. Another one is micromanaging. And the reason why this one is a warning sign is because oftentimes micromanaging is a result of wanting to control, right? And if you're experiencing burnout or on the verge of burnout, you feel out of control. You feel like you don't have as much control over your life. And so you're kind of grasping at straws, trying to find something to help you regain that sense of control. And micromanagement is one of the ways that it can end up showing up. And then the last behavior sign that I want to talk about is pulling back emotionally or mentally, right? Basically divesting, right? You don't want to, you're pulling away and not wanting to invest in things emotionally or mentally. You don't want to give them the emotional or mental energy, right? And these signs or these indicators are very common, especially among high achievers. And the reason why we tend to miss them is because we're just used to pushing through the discomfort, right? We're highly ambitious. We're very goal oriented. And we're just so accustomed to having to just get things done. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. It doesn't matter how tired you are. The things have got to get done. That's that survival mode speaking, right? And so we're just used to pushing through. And we start to confuse capacity with resilience, right? We think that, oh, okay, well, I'm just being resilient. I need to bounce back, when you're actually operating outside of the capacity that you actually have. You're pushing too hard. You're pushing too much. You're doing too much. And we get caught up in productivity because we feel, because we see that things are getting done, that productivity can start to mask the fact that we're depleted, right? Because we're like, oh, I'm on and popping. I'm getting stuff done. And that to us, because we see the productivity, like it's worth, right? It's worth the sacrifice that we're making, right? Remember going back to earlier where I was talking about, like, oh, we'll rest later. There's also this stigma, especially among leadership, but there's this stigma around needing rest. Leaders often feel this pressure to model strength, right? We've got to lead the charge. We've got to push through because we want to show our team that we're strong and that we can handle the pressure. When the tough gets going, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? We have that mindset when we really should be modeling what care looks like, self-care really looks like. We start to frame rest as a weakness and not wisdom, which is really what it is. Matter of fact, I believe that rest is a productivity strategy. It's not a weakness. Think about it this way. If you have ever worked out with weights, you do a certain number of sets. Usually it's 2 to 3 sets, maybe even 5, depending upon what your goals are, right? And so maybe you do 10 to 12 reps in 2 to 3 sets. So you do your 10 repetitions, you take a break, you rest, and then you do 10 more repetitions with another period of rest in between before you go into your final set or however many sets you're doing. That's wisdom, because what's happening is you're giving your muscles an opportunity to recover from the physical exertion. And you got to think about this. Your brain is also a muscle. It needs rest after exertion. So rest really is wisdom. It's strategic productivity or a productivity strategy. There's also this idea that asking for help or asking for support can feel risky. You don't want to feel vulnerable to others. You don't want people to think that you can't handle the workload. As a result, you just take on more and more of the load, even though you're struggling. And there's a few myths that can really accelerate burnout if you don't shift your mindset. One is, if I don't do it, it won't get done right. For some things, there truly is a right way to do it. But what if, okay, it gets done, but maybe it gets done at 80% of what you would have done. So you don't have to do it all. It's okay, right? So let's bust that mindset that if you don't do it, it's not going to be done right. Is it better that it's done or better that it's done exactly the way you wanted it? Another one is, oh, this is just a busy season. Are there such things at time periods as busy seasons? Yes, absolutely. But during busy seasons, especially when you know that there are particular times of the year when it's more busy, that is when you must be even more intentional with your time and energy. You've got to be more strategic with your rest, right? And another one is that, oh, I can rest later. No, we need to be very strategic. Matter of fact, one of the things that I do as soon as I get booked to do a training, because I know that training all day is extremely draining for me. I absolutely love it, but it's very draining for me. So as soon as I get booked for a training, I immediately go and block time out on my schedule on the front end and on the back end. Time for me to be able to rest and be fully prepared for training day, and time on the back end for me to recover so that I don't go right into another busy schedule, right? That's one of the strategies that I use. And when we don't do things like that and we allow ourselves to be in this place of overwhelm, there's some things that happen neurologically to us, right? Our brain starts to shift into survival mode, and we start becoming more reactive to things and slide out of actual decision making. Now you might be saying, like, well, what's the difference? Decision making is very intentional. It's you take the time to, depending upon the situation, right? Some things require more time, more data, more analysis, and some things don't require as much. Decision making is very intentional. Reactivity is just where we experience some sort of stimuli and we just immediately react out of emotion, out of an emotion, right? And when we're in this place, when we're in that survival mode and we're in overwhelm, it becomes harder for us to think long term. We become very narrowly focused on what is right in front of us. But there are some small resets that you can do or make that can really create a huge difference. The first one is to just pause before you respond to something, right? Shift out of that reactivity and just take a moment to pause, breathe before you respond to whatever is happening. Another one is creating space between meetings, right? You can do something similar to what I do. You don't necessarily need a whole bunch of time on the front end or the back end, but if you do have a lot of meetings on your schedule, create some buffer time in between your meetings. One, what if the meeting goes long and you have another one and that eats up the time that you have, and you're just going from one meeting right into another, into another, into another? That doesn't give you an opportunity to mentally reset. Not only that, we just need bio breaks sometimes. You got to go to the bathroom or get a cup of coffee, a drink of water, right? So put some buffer time on your schedule in between meetings to give you an opportunity to process what happened in the meeting, to get a mental reset, to have a bio break, whatever. Don't jam pack your schedule with back-to-back meetings. And then put on your schedule one non-negotiable recovery practice and protect it. Right? Like I said, for me, I block out my calendar the day after I train because I know that my body's going to be depleted and I'm going to need time to recover. So I have one of my recovery practices is I do a slow start to my day. after having a day of training. Here are a few shifts that you can make before you start to experience burnout. These are things that I want you to start incorporating into your regular day right now. First is to be intentional about your pacing. Stop allowing fires to dictate how your day is going to go. Stop that urgency cycle and get very intentional about pacing. One of the sayings that I heard years ago, and it has really stuck with me and I absolutely love it, is poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Just because someone else is in emergency mode or in crisis mode does not mean that you have to be sucked into that as well, right? So be very intentional about your pacing. Next, I want you to delegate. Don't wait until you're in a place where you are completely exhausted to delegate or you can't function. No. Take a look at all the things that you have on your to-do list and say, hey, is this something that someone else could be doing? Or does it require me? If it doesn't require you, then it's a candidate to be delegated to someone. Then start looking at who do I have on my team that this could be delegated to? Who could I develop by passing this along to them? And lastly, I want you to redefine success to include your own well-being. You don't have to sacrifice your well-being to be successful. That is a myth. That is an idea that society has put forth that, once I get to this particular place of success, then I'll do all the things. I'll go on the vacations. I'll take the time for myself, or I'll do whatever the self-care things are. But right now I'm in beast mode. I'm in build mode. No, you can be well on your way to success. But that's going to require you to be very intentional about building that in. So I want to invite you to do a little introspection. Let's be honest with ourselves. Ask yourself, what has your body been trying to tell you? Think about the warning signs that I share with you, the physical, emotional, and behavioral warning signs that I share with you. What has your body been trying to tell you? Notice the things that you have normalized but feel heavy. It feels heavy to you, but you just normalized it as it just is this way. And then I want you to choose that awareness without judging yourself. This is not about beating yourself up. This is not about feeling bad. It's really about becoming aware, because awareness is the first step to change. If you don't even know that things are happening, if you're not aware of something, you can't make it any type of change to it. So I want you to think about burnout proofing your leadership as stewardship, right? You've got to protect your energy, because when you protect your energy, you protect your leadership. I'm going to say that again. When you protect your energy, you protect your leadership. And well-being is a part of ethical leadership. No, we're not slave drivers here. No one wants to work for a slave driver. Your well-being, as well as your team's well-being, is just as important as getting the things done that need to get done. In fact, they're going to help you to be more effective in getting things done if you allow for the space for you to practice self-care. Not only that, sustainable capacity, that's a responsibility. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your team, you owe it to your family to protect your capacity. We don't want you checking out. Burnout is very real and has very real physical consequences. It could be as small as getting sick too often to all the way to having a heart attack or stroke and no longer being here. And I certainly don't want any of that for you, especially you checking out of here prematurely, because burnout is preventable. And I want to support you in leading well without burning out. I created a space called the Lead Well Academy. It's a place to slow down, to get clear, and to rebuild your capacity. It's designed for leaders who want to create sustainable leadership and get out of that survival mode. You can find the link inside of the show notes to get more information and join the community. It's totally free. So whenever you have the time, or if that feels aligned for you, then definitely head over to the show notes and take a look. And remember, leading well includes taking care of yourself. We don't want to just be good leaders. We want to be well leaders. So until next time, lead well and live well.